welcoming you back to our YouTube channel. Today, I'll go through the first and second episodes of the 2017 television series The Good Doctor. Dr. Sean Murphy is a surgical resident who is autistic. He wants to leave his calm existence in his village and join the famed St. Bonaventure Hospital surgery unit in San Jose, California. Sean, despite being autistic, is an outstanding surgeon with near photographic recall and the capacity to remember minute details and changes, and he bids his boyhood home farewell. He crosses a football field on his route to the airport and remembers being tormented multiple times until being saved by his younger brother Steve. Sean is astonished by the noise as he arrives at San Jose National Airport. Some workmen inadvertently drop a glass board on a teenage kid, gravely wounding him. His parents, as well as a man claiming to be a doctor, rush to his aid. They see that the kid's neck has been pierced by shards of shattered glass. Sean studies the issue from a distance while the doctor uses a clean towel to stop the bleeding. When Sean says that the doctor is murdering the youngster, everyone waits in quiet for aid to arrive. He goes on to say that the youngster isn't an adult. This suggests the doctor is smothering him by putting pressure on his trachea. He repositions the doctor's hand and examines it for any further damage. Meanwhile, an adventurous hospital on-board conference is being conducted in St. Bon to discuss the arrival of a creative surgeon. Sean was employed by the hospital's president, Dr. Aaron Glassman, who has known him since he was 14. He is the only one who supports his continued employment as a surgical resident at the hospital. Because of Sean's medical background, all of the other directors are doubtful. The chief of surgery, Dr. Marcus Andrews, is adamant about not exhausting him. President Glassman tries to persuade the others by detailing all of Sean's skills, but nothing he says is enough to persuade them. Meanwhile, Claire and Dr. Kalu are hooking up in one of the hospital rooms. When Claire is summoned to have a patient sign a consent form, they are agitated. Kalu comments as she gets dressed that no one knows their relationship is in trouble. He goes to the security checkpoint to beg for a knife to execute a procedure to let the air out that has gathered in the area surrounding his lungs, but they refuse to give it to him because of safety concerns as the knife and runs away only to be pinned down by security. He explains to them that he is attempting to save a life. Claire returns to the hospital and asks an older patient to sign a consent form for his heart operation. The man is afraid and wants to wait for a second opinion before signing the papers. When she informs him that the patient is in distress, the doctor begs Kalu to take over. While the majority of the physicians are pragmatic, Claire is more empathetic to her patients. Sean arrives from the airport with 2 bottles of booze, a tube, and a knife. His dish poisons everything and punctures the kid's chest. He crafts a makeshift one-way valve out of the tube and the bottle of alcohol, releasing the stored air and allowing the youngster to breathe again. Sean was physically beaten by his father as a youngster, as shown in flashback. His father murdered his beloved rabbit Sean after he was expelled out of 3 schools due to his ailment, and his brother Steve took the bunny to the physicians, where he met President Glassman for the first time. The brothers began to live aboard a bus the next day. They are separated from their parents. Steve died after falling from a high platform while playing in a warehouse. Sean's primary motivation for pursuing a career as a surgeon is to help people. Back in the present, Sean is in the ambulance with the kid's parents when he sees a minor change in his heart rate. The parameter addicts, on the other hand, refuse to trust him. Chantal informs Claire that the child needs an echocardiography when they arrive at the hospital. But she doesn't trust him because the report indicates no change in his heart rate. When he is in 5th grade, he is kicked out of the hospital, and his team is in charge of treating the child. He also observes a minor difference in his heart rate. He and Claire rush up to Sean and inquire as to why he indicated the child required an echocardiography. He is taken back to the hospital and informed of the findings. When he examines them, He notices that a shard of glass has gotten into the kid's bloodstream. As a result of his advice, the doctors carry out the procedure and discover the shard of glass lodged in the child's heart. Back at the board meeting, President Glassman declares that if Sean fails to be a decent doctor within the first 6 months of his job, he will resign. Despite this, the board votes against his appointment. Members are shown the viral video before they are allowed to depart. Sean shaving the kid at the airport. He claims he couldn't shave his rabbit and brother when he was younger, so he wants to give other kids the same chance. Following a quick interview, the board decides to hire him. Dr. Neil Melendez sends him to his first real operation, where he keeps him in control of the suction and informs him that he doesn't belong in a hospital. Sean ignores his remarks and, as a result, claims that he has a lot to learn from him. He also inquired as to whether Neil's hubris aids him in becoming a better surgeon. Everyone, including Claire, is taken aback by his candor. Sean sleeps on the floor of his new flat that night. He has set alarms to assist him in getting through his morning routine. He eagerly heads to work, but due to the bus, he is 5 minutes late. He is a surgical resident on Dr. Neil's team. The group sarcastically remarks that the board made the correct decision in suspecting her of having an abdominal tumor. Sean discovers that she has a dangerous tumor called sarcoma after reviewing the papers. According to Sean diagnosis of the team, the lady panics, believing she is about to die, and teaches him that while he should always be truthful when speaking with patients, he should not make them panic. Prepares for the removal of the tumor by surgery. Neil, on the other hand, directs Sean to the simpler duties throughout the hospital. Sean seems unfazed and claims he is looking forward to conducting the scut labor. He then returns to caring to the people who have lesser issues. He does, however, recommend that even mild issues be subjected to many examinations, to be certain about the options. The nurse assigned to him begins to become irritated, but says nothing to intervene. After a while, President Glassman inquired as to why he was not in the surgery ward. When he learns that Neil has given him scut work, he assumes that Neil is doing it out of prejudice. Clara is now with a patient who is awaiting surgery for a tumor. She is terrified since her son's wedding is in 2 months. Clara comforts the woman by telling her that she has a very good chance of surviving, which is untrue. It is damaging to the patients if they are told the truth. Sean is forcing his patients to undergo unneeded tests, which Dr. Marcus informs Neil about. He's keeping an eye on Sean to see if he makes a mistake. Sean, on the other hand, is taking care of a young girl who has come in with a stomach pain. Her parents don't stop squabbling the entire time. Sean requested many tests to determine the source of his discomfort, but before they could be completed, Niels intervened and told him that the source of his suffering was most likely stress. He requested the nurse to be Sean's mentor for the remainder of the day, guiding him through which tests are necessary and which are not. Sean is dissatisfied with the outcomes of a young girl, but he decides to follow Neil's instructions. In a flashback, we see Steve and Sean begging for money to help them live. Sean isn't a big fan of lying. As a result, Steve completes the assignment the majority of the time. In the present, he continues to examine patients under the supervision of nurses, while Neil, Claire and Kali began tumor removal operation on the patient from earlier. To their amazement, the tumor is much larger than they expected, and they can't see the organs from the lab. Neil's refusal to include him in the operation makes me a little sad. He requested the nurse to hurry up at the lab, but she merely told him to wait. This reminds Sean of a time when his brother threw a rock through someone's window to teach him to be brave. If he doesn't do it right away, he threatens to hurl pebbles at the nurse. Laugh and urge him to hold his breath for a few moments. He returns with the results and studies them. While the other physicians come to the conclusion that there is nothing that can be done to rescue her. When Kalu proposes Sean's proposal, he advises they remove one of her good kidneys to obtain a clean picture of the tumor. They discuss the procedure with Neil. Neil congratulates him on his rapid thinking and chooses to take the woman's kidney, a healthy organ, but even that will not guarantee her recovery. However, because the majority agrees, Sean conducts many tests on the small girl who had an upset stomach. He discovers that she is suffering from intestinal malrotation, which can be deadly. "I'm not really thinking about it." He makes a hasty decision to notify her parents. They initially believe he is insane and want him to leave. However, upon further inspection, they discover their daughter comatose on the bed. Drive her to the hospital as quickly as possible as Sean does CPR in the car. The tumor excision is effective somewhere else, and the woman is rescued. When Sean comes with the female and fails to ultrasound her, he discovers she needs minor surgery as well. Neil decides to do it on his own because he is too busy, but he gets stopped in the middle. Thank Neil for his assistance and request that he return home. Dr. Marcus, on the other hand, instructs Neil to return Sean to his team because he has demonstrated his worth. Neil hesitantly requested him to be the suction supervisor. Later, in the washroom, Dr. Marcus and President Glassman run into one another. Dr. Marcus openly says that he is hoping for Sean's demise so that he may become the hospital's next president. He just vouched for him today because he wanted to give him authority so he could screw stuff up. The little girl's parents are with her in the final moment. "I'm grateful she's safe." When Sean enters the room, they express their thankfulness for the fact that their daughter was saved. That was all there was to it in the video. I sincerely hope you enjoyed it. To help us out, please subscribe for more material like this and press the like button. Also, if you'd want us to recap your favorite film, leave a comment. Until we meet again, take care. Until we meet again, take care.